There's no shortage of dynamic duos that seem to be just unstoppable. And in this video, I'm going to look at one of the most underrated duos in Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram, who just took the league by storm in 2017. When people talk about the best duos in the league, they mention players like Mahomes and Hill, or Rodgers and Adams, and many running back duos just don't get enough love. It seems recently that it has been so focused on the passing game and the high-flying offenses in places like Kansas City and Tampa Bay, whereas fast-paced run games are put in the backseat. Am I saying that players like McCaffrey and Barkley and even Kamara are ignored? No, but people only talk about them when they have insane games, like rushing for over 200 yards and a few touchdowns, or catching 15 passes. But nonetheless, on the other side, players like Mahomes, Brady, and Lamar are given the limelight and most of the attention for the entire season. This situation even played out this year, and within the MVP race, the entire time throughout the season, it was either Mahomes or Rodgers talking about winning the MVP. And near the end of the year, the MVP was seemingly a gimme to Rodgers, as many people ignored Derrick Henry's ridiculous year. Rodgers had a great season and played at the top of his game, but the fact that Derrick passed 2,000 yards and stood next to no chance is just wild. All of that was just a long-winded response to the idea that running backs need to get more love, and in this case, Kamara and Ingram. Mark Ingram Jr. was born in Hackensack, New Jersey, to a former Super Bowl champion in Mark Ingram Sr., who was a former wide receiver with the New York Giants team that ended up winning Super Bowl 25. And as a result, the idea of playing professionally wasn't so crazy for Mark from the get-go. Since the very beginning, he was a star, and because of Mark's dominance, he started all 4 years in high school, as he rushed for over 2,500 yards and 38 touchdowns in his junior and senior seasons. Not only was Mark a great running back, but he also was great on the other side of the ball as a quarterback and had 84 tackles to go along with 8 picks in only his senior season. As you could probably guess, he was an all-state caliber player in football, but not only did he dominate on the field, but he also killed it on the track, as he was a 9-time all-state selection for track and field. Following his stellar high school career, Mark was a 4-star and the 10th ranked running back in the class, behind a whole bunch of nobodies. As a high recruit, Mark acquired a good deal of attention from schools all across the nation, but the only school that he really cared about from the beginning was Alabama, and as a result, Mark became a Bama boy. As a freshman, Mark played behind senior Glenn Coffey, and although he was a backup, he was still able to rack up some yards with over 700 yards rushing and 12 rushing touchdowns on just a great Crimson Tide unit. In 2008, Alabama went 12-1 with their sole loss coming in the SEC Championship to the Tim Tebow-led Florida Gators 31-20. Following the loss in the championship, Alabama went up against Utah and yet again lost 31-17 to end the season in heartbreak. With Glenn Coffey heading off to the NFL draft in 2009, it was Mark's time in the spotlight, and he sure did take advantage of it, as he rushed for over 1,600 yards and 17 touchdowns on an undefeated Crimson Tide unit that ended up beating the Gators in the SEC Championship 32-13 to earn a ticket to the Natty against the Colt McCoy-led Longhorns. From the beginning, Alabama was in control and won 37-21 to start the true dynasty in Tuscaloosa.
The 2009 Heisman Trophy is awarded to Mark Ingram of the University of Alabama.
Mark's junior season started off a bit rough as he missed the first few games with a knee injury, but sophomore star Trent Richardson filled in and the team was fine. And although Mark was able to come back against Duke and finish off the rest of the year, it was truly an underwhelming season for him, and he only rushed for just over 850 yards and 13 touchdowns. Not only did Mark have a tough season, but the Crimson Tide struggled as they only went 9-3, and although they destroyed Michigan State in the Capital One Bowl 49-7, the season as a whole was just a disappointment. After such an underwhelming season, Mark announced that he would enter the NFL draft as a projected first-round pick. Those projections turned out to be true as Mark went 28th overall to the Saints, a team that had recently won a Super Bowl a few years ago and was just at the top of their game. The next few years, from 2011 to 2013, Mark shared the backfield with little-known Pierre Thomas, and because of that, he wasn't able to put up crazy numbers like he did in Tuscaloosa. And in 2011, Mark had just under 500 yards and 5 touchdowns as the Saints went 13-3 and made it all the way to the divisional round as they lost to the Kaepernick-led 49ers in a shootout that ended 36-32. After a 13-3 season in 2011, the Saints began to crumble as they went 7-9 in 2012, following the whole Bountygate situation coming to light, as Sean Payton was suspended the entire year, And although the season was underwhelming, Mark was able to rush for just over 600 yards and 5 touchdowns in just a rough year overall.
Oh my God.
Coming off of a super disappointing 2012 season, the Saints went 11-5 and made it all the way to the divisional round once again. But this time they lost to Seattle 23-15 and yet again ended the season in disappointment. Once again, Mark was unable to take control of the offense, and in 2013 he had his worst year to date with just under 400 yards and only 1 rushing touchdown. But following a plethora of disappointing seasons for Mark, he was able to take control of the offense in 2014. That year, Mark had his best season by far, so much so that he almost ran for 1,000 yards and had 9 touchdowns in one of the many awful 7-9 seasons for the Saints, a team that had an almost non-existent defense that kept the offense from success. 2015 was more the same, and as the Saints went 7-9 yet again, Mark regressed as he rushed for just over 750 yards and 6 touchdowns. Disappointment continued plaguing the Saints in 2016, and as you guessed it, they yet again went 7-9 for the 3rd straight season. Even though the Saints' struggles persisted, Mark was able to rush for over 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns in the last year of despair for the team. Alvin might not have had a Super Bowl champion father, but he was still able to dominate high school football, and as a junior, he rushed for 1,300 yards and 17 touchdowns. And while many would see that as an amazing year, Kamara outdid himself as a senior with over 2,200 yards and 26 touchdowns. Not only was Alvin a beast, but he was such a unit that he led his team to the first state championship, and because of it was named Georgia's Mr. Football. Following such an insane season for Alvin, he became a 4-star recruit and garnered interest from schools like Florida, Georgia, Clemson, and Auburn. But like pretty much any other time, Alabama was the top of the list, and Alvin became a Bama boy. Unlike Mark's grand experience at Tuscaloosa, Alvin called his time a rough experience, as he had a knee surgery and then was stuck behind stars like Derrick Henry and Kenyon Drake. Due to Alvin's frustration, he acted up, and as a result was suspended from practicing and then a bowl game by the man in control of it all in Nick Saban. Instead of dealing with the awful situation at Bama, Alvin decided to go the JUCO route and transferred to Hutchinson Community College in Kansas, a city that had around 40,000 people and a much different place than Tuscaloosa. Although the situation wasn't the best, Alvin made the most of it and ran for over 1,200 yards and 18 touchdowns, as he gained the attention of some SEC schools in Georgia and Tennessee, and he ended up becoming a Tennessee Volunteer. At Tennessee, Alvin had to split carries with Jalen Hurd and John Kelly, but he was still able to rush for nearly 700 yards and 7 touchdowns as he got his name back out there. Upon his success, the team went 8-4 and made it all the way to the Outback Bowl, as they just clobbered Northwestern 45-6 and truly ended the season with a bang. The following year was much of the same for the Volunteers and Kamara, as the team once again went 8-4, but this time Kamara ran for just under 600 yards and 9 touchdowns. After 2 solid seasons with Tennessee, Alvin decided to forego his junior year and entered the NFL draft. And although he had a decent college career, he wasn't one of the well-known backs, and as a result dropped down all the way to the 3rd round and was the 67th overall pick to the Saints, and the rest is history.
Past the 50 and racing down the sideline. They can't get him. He breaks it for the touchdown.
In 2017, Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara were somehow both able to shine in the same offense, and as a result of this, the Saints just got back into their groove. Although you would think the year would be underwhelming for Mark, it was quite the opposite, and he had one of his best seasons of his entire career, with over 1,100 yards and 12 touchdowns. If you thought that was great, Mark was also able to put up over 400 yards receiving in just a great year for the Bama boy. On the other side of the duo, Alvin was able to dominate as a rookie, with over 700 rushing yards and 8 rushing touchdowns, to go along with over 800 yards receiving and 5 receiving touchdowns in only his first year in the pros. The duo just dominated and combined for over 3,000 all-purpose yards, which alone is insane, but they were also able to elevate the offense as a whole, and the Saints went 11-5, and because of it, made the playoffs for the first time since 2013, as they were able to take down a divisional rival in Carolina, and as a result matched up against the Minnesota Vikings in the Minnesota Miracle game.
The pass is caught! Diggs! Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable!
Although the season ended on a sour note, the Saints were back in business, and not only were Mark and Alvin able to dominate, but a new star emerged in the receiving game in Michael Thomas, who had 2 straight seasons over 1,100 yards receiving and was only getting better. 2017 was truly a special season for the two, and will always be remembered for how great a year it was, as the two took the Saints out of the rubble and right back into the spotlight. Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram took the league by storm in 2017, and were able to reignite a dynasty in the Big Easy.
Is going all the way for a Saints touchdown! And racing down the sideline, they can't get him. He breaks it for the touchdown.
Thanks for watching my second dynamic duo video. If you want to see my first one about Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, click that little box on the top. But anyway, comment down below if you think the duo was underrated, and I will see you guys soon. Peace out.